Okay, this is my this is my dad's 2001 GMC Yukon. So it's 25 years old, and I put a brake line kit in. You can see these are the old brake lines that came out of it. They are extremely rusty. So the story with this truck is I it needed a fuel pump. It wasn't starting. And so I had the gas tank out anyways. And while I had the gas tank out, I noticed that the fuel line started leaking. I think what happened is when I jacked the car up, when I jacked the truck up, it twisted it up a little bit and disturbed the lines. And the lines were so rusty that they literally cracked open. So anyways, so I'm gonna go through. This is my first time doing this job. I should also mention that I'm a licensed mechanic. I used to work at a GM dealer. I did my apprenticeship at a GM dealer, and I worked as a mechanic at a GM dealer. But this is my first time doing this job, and I'm going to walk through kind of how I did it. There's other videos online, so I'm not going to repeat the information that other people have made. Okay, so let's get started. All right, let's start with the parts. So this is my 2004 GMC Sierra, and it also has rusty brake lines. And oh, there's my Technicians Guild when I was a mechanic, way back when. Anyways, so it's my 2004 GMC Sierra. And this also has rusty brake lines. And so I figure I ordered two brake line kits, one for my dad's truck and one for my truck. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one as well. So what I did was I ordered a Dorman brake line kit from Rock Auto. And I'm very happy with Rock Auto. I'm very happy with the Dorman kit. They were inexpensive. They were less than $90 Canadian for each kit. As opposed to the GM OEM kit, which I could purchase too. I believe they were about a little under $300 for the kit. But I have no doubt in my mind that there's some company in China that manufactures these brake lines. And they sell them to Dorman and they sell them to GM. Dorman sells them at less than $90 Canadian per kit. And GM sells them for just under $300 per kit. I have no doubt that it's really the same kit. Anyways, so here's my purchasing experience. When I bought them from Rock Auto, get this. Each kit has 7 tubes, 7 stainless steel. By the way, these are stainless steel brake lines, and so are the GM ones. The GM ones are also stainless steel. Which really makes you question how many people in the world are going to manufacture this, right? I still think there's one company in China that just cranks these things out. Anyways, so they're both stainless steel kits. They both come with fittings and the flared ends, so you don't have to do any of that stuff. Okay. And when I bought this from Rock Auto, though, first of all, let me just show you here. Okay, so you see here, this is a 2004 GMC Sierra 2500 6.6 V8 diesel, Dorman kit 919-219. Okay, and you can see here, this is for the 2001 Yukon, the Dorman kit 919152 brake line kit. Okay, these are again Canadian prices. So I had Rock Auto shipped to my door. So there's 7 tubes per kit, but get this, when Rock Auto shipped them, it shipped it in one giant box. So this one box contained both sets of brake lines. There's 14 brake tubes in there. The only piece of paper that came in the box is this one piece of paper here, like this. The problem with this paper, when I ordered 2 kits, is that, okay, these numbers here do not contain the full part number. It does not have the full part number. So I had no idea which one belonged to which vehicle. They were not the same. Okay, so you can see that each one is labeled here 609 FL3-48. But you can see here that it doesn't correspond here. So either I'm missing a piece of paper or something's going on. So what I did is I contacted, you can't contact Rock Auto. They don't have customer service, and that's how they keep their prices so low. Fair enough. So I contacted Dorman. I was talking to Robert, and Dorman, they are so good. Their customer service is so excellent. I got an email back the day after from Robert, and I said to Robert, I emailed Robert, I said, I don't know if this is even a Dorman part because it didn't come in a Dorman box, right? It just came with all these tubes stuffed into one single box, and I didn't see a Dorman logo. I ordered Dorman parts before, no Dorman logo. And so I sent Robert some pictures, and apparently that is the Dorman logo. I didn't know that. Okay, and what Robert sent me back is he sent me this list here. Okay, it tells me exactly the part number and the tube, the part number and the tube. So what I did was I checked that I made sure I had all the right tubes, and guess what? One tube was actually incorrect. I don't have 60919 RR24. I have RR27, which I assume is the same tube as that, but 3 inches longer. So I emailed Robert back, and again, he got back to me right away. He says, I asked him, well, is this tube going to work for my Sierra? He says, he didn't say yes or no, but he said, I'll send you the right one. Fair enough. So the Dorman group are just super awesome. Really impressed. So anyways, when you buy the brake line kit, it comes in a package like this. It's able here for you to see. It comes kind of like this, and you can see here, this one probably reaches from the ABS unit right to the back of the truck. And they have these things called shipping bends. So between these white stickers here, and they're clearly labeled shipping bend. So when you unpack it, what you do is you straighten out this curve here. So anywhere you see these two white stickers, okay, you straighten them out, and then you install the brake line. Okay, so that's what the kit looks like. Stainless steel, like I said, super awesome. Okay, and that's a. So anyways, also talking to Robert, what he said is, I said, well, why didn't it not come in a Dorman box? How come all the tubes are in one single box? And he says, well, normally they sell them to Rock Auto with a Dorman box, but what Rock Auto must have done is they must have discarded the Dorman box, stuffed it in their own box to save some shipping costs. But I'm pretty sure that I'm missing some paperwork from Rock Auto. So yeah. So anyways, let's talk about what this job actually involves. Okay, let's start from the back of the truck. Now, spare tire. Take the spare tire out. Okay, get a creeper. Take the spare tire out. Now, I already had the fuel tank out because I was also replacing a fuel pump, and that made replacing rear lines pretty straightforward. I think you could do it without taking the gas tank out, but I think it would be a real painful job to do without taking it out, without removing the gas tank. So if you're not removing the gas tank, I would assume you'd have to take this out, no problem. But the problem is this: the brake line runs, I don't know if you can see it, right there. You see that silvery? That is a brake line. It runs along the top of the frame rail, but there's a body mount right there. You see that body mount? That body mount right here. Okay, right on the left there. So you'd have to squeeze a line between the gas tank and the body mount and kind of feed it in this way. This way, which I think you can do. I think it's possible, but oh man, really does not look like a lot of fun. Yeah. So, but also it was, if I were to take the gas tank out, just to do the brake lines, I'm not sure that's worth it either, because it's also a pain in the ass to get the gas tank out. Like wasn't really that easy. I had to do it because I'm replacing a fuel pump, right? So anyways, if you're replacing, the rear brake lines. Okay, and you can see the rear brake lines here. Okay, you know, you may as well replace all the hoses too. There's 3 hoses in the back. There's 1 flexible hose in the center. Okay, and there's 1 flexible hose right here. Okay, right here. This is a flexible hose, and there's one on the other side as well. Okay, so you really may as well replace the flexible hoses at the same time as the brake line. Okay, so do yourself a favor and order all new flexible hoses, and you can see how the connections come in like this. All right, now, and I gotta say, this was okay. See if we can get you a good angle here. All right, that right here, that connection was a real pain in the ass to get to. Okay, even with the spare tire out. Now there's a clip that goes. There's a clip that goes behind here. I'm touching here, and that clip is really hard to get to. So you have to get that clip off in order to loosen it, and you have to snap it back on when you. So it's really hard to get to, because if you look on the other side, okay, you can't get to it because the clip is. You see the line there? The clip is right below here. Okay, this is welded in place. It doesn't come out. Okay, so how to get that clip out? I took a long pry bar. Okay, I took a long pry bar, and you see the angle here? You see the hose here? Okay. Oh, sorry, this hose here. Okay, I took a long pry bar, and I'm touching the clip here. The pry bar has an angled lip, and I jammed the pry bar right against here, and I just hammered it up and snapped and just pushed the clip off. Okay, that's how I did it. So a long pry bar basically going. I'll show you. Long pry bar going up here like this. Up here like this. And then I could just barely get the clip. I took a hammer and just hammered it off. Okay, and to get the clip back in, I was able to use some large slip joint pliers, like a slip joint pliers like this. Okay, and just basically squeeze that clip back on. But that was a real pain in the ass to do, to get that clip off. So that's the back. Let's take a look at the front. Oh, I may as well mention this. Okay, to if you are removing the fuel pump, the fuel tank, I really don't know if it's a good idea to remove the fuel tank just to replace the brake lines. But these clamps were facing up that way, so they were turned 180. So I had to get a screwdriver on kind of backwards to remove that clamp. Okay, of course these were completely stuck. They wouldn't move. Get a long pry bar and just kind of use some penetrating fluid in this area here. Soak it, and then use a pry bar to pry off the rubber hose. The rubber hose is of course very hard. Okay, and of course you need to empty the fuel tank first. Okay, and these straps are pretty easy. 50mm bolt here. And here, to remove the straps. Okay, and what I did was there's a 13mm bolt right here. You can see it. 13mm bolt here, and a 13mm bolt here. That loosens the EVAP canister. This thing here, and what I did was I disconnected. Fairly easy to do, easy to get to. I disconnected this fitting here, which goes to the fuel tank, and this line, this plastic line, came off with the fuel tank. So instead of disconnecting from over there, which is kind of hard to do, I loosened this. Disconnected this line here, and the tank came out. And then you just remove the return line, the harness, and everything from the top of the tank. yeah. So all right. Okay, so that's the back of it, and here's another picture of the engine mount that the brake line goes between the engine mount and the gas tank, and you can see here that there is absolutely no room to work. So that I don't know. It's, like I said, I don't know if it'd be a good idea to remove the fuel tank or not. But anyways, okay. Now let's move further down the line here. Okay, I'm gonna give you some advice with this. All right, this is the ABS unit, and unfortunately, I made a map of where the lines go. I lost it, but it's all over the internet. Just do a Google search for it, and you know it's all over the internet. Basically, these two lines at the bottom. Okay, let me get a light here. Okay, here's a better view of the new lines in place. You can see that they're very nice and organized. Okay, so here's some tips and advice I got for you. Remove the fuel. Definitely remove the fuel filter. Remove the fuel filter bracket. Okay, 13 millimeters. One here and one on the other side. Get a little pry bar and pop this bracket off to give you some room there. You're absolutely going to need a 9/16. Okay. You're going to need a 9/16 flare nut wrench. Okay. You're going to need a 9/16 regular wrench. And I also have a really nice tool, a 9/16 stubby wrench. Just like that, a little stubby 9/16 wrench. Okay. I would soak this area with penetrating fluid. Okay. Get it, let it sit for a while and crack it loose, and then remove them one by one. Okay. Actually, even before you remove it, I would also trace and map out where each line goes, although that information is easily attainable online. Okay, now when you install, okay, here's my biggest tip for you. When you install these lines here, okay, these fittings have to go on perfectly straight. Okay, it is, remember that this ABS unit is made of aluminum. Okay. This is probably brass. You're talking soft metals here. So you don't want to thread it on and then use a wrench to you want to thread it on at least 3 or 4 threads that go on easily by hand. Okay? And it's frustrating because once you get the line in, the line doesn't move very much. It's not very flexible. So what happens is it's hard to get the line straight onto the ABS unit. It's hard to get them on straight and to thread it a few times. It's tempting to just, okay, it felt like it caught. You turn it like a quarter turn. It felt like it caught, and then you're going to use a wrench to tighten it. Don't do that. You could damage the threads, okay? So you must thread it in 3 or 4 or more turns by hand because you're not going to damage aluminum or brass by hand. It's going to be pretty hard to do. Okay, you have to find the right angle. You have to kind of bend the tubes a little bit. What I would consider doing is there's 3 13 millimeter bolts. 1, 2, there's one on the other side. I would consider, once you have these lines loosened, I would consider loosening these 13 millimeter bolts. Okay, and then that way this whole ABS unit will be loose. And what you can, and the advantage of that is that you could change the angle of the ABS unit to line up with the lines, because once the lines are in place, they're not very flexible, and it's difficult to find the right position to thread them in just right. Now, when you thread them in, remember that you're dealing with brass and aluminum. I would just thread them in and make them snug, okay? I would not over tighten them, okay, in case that you spin one or damage the threads or something like that. And I would just they're likely going to leak a little bit. And I'll show you what I did to pressure test it. And then later on, just tighten it just enough so they don't leak anymore. And just another little tug. Okay. So I would not, get right angle here. Yeah, I would be very careful with this. Again, you're dealing with soft metals here. Okay. And the biggest problem I had was just getting them to line up properly. And I think it would have been a lot easier if I loosen these bolts or just remove them entirely. And so that way the ABS unit can be moved around a bit to help them line up. Now these bolts to me look pretty, they look pretty corroded and rusted. I would soak them in penetrating oil. I would definitely not use a power tool to buzz them off. I would use a hand wrench. I would use a socket and an extension there's a hole in the frame right here. A socket and extension to crack it loose, because I don't want to break that bolt. Okay. I would definitely work it loose. And if it doesn't come loose, if those bolts do not come loose, I would just leave it. I wouldn't try to loosen them. I would just have to struggle with the lines. Okay. So that was a little bit challenging. Some of them went in right away, and a few of them I had to kind of fight with and find the correct angle. And yeah, so that's how it looks like. Okay, I'm only going to show this side. I'm not going to show both sides here. So you need to remove the inner fender. Okay, you need to remove the inner fender liner. Okay, and then you can see the brake lines run along the top of the frame rail. All right. Okay. And of course, as I mentioned, you definitely want to use new hoses. Get some nice new hoses. Particularly challenging when you're replacing the hoses are this bolt here. Okay, this bolt here was super corroded and looks like it's going to snap off the minute I apply torque to it. And this bolt here, okay, this bolt was so corroded that I couldn't even get a socket on it. Like, it was just worn out. But guess what? What I did was I removed the caliper, removed the rotor, and I sanded this. I took a die grinder, I sanded this down here and here. I got an acetylene torch and got this one nice and hot. Okay, and then I was able to get a vice grip on here, and I was able to remove the old screw, which is nothing more than just a little stub. it was that worn out, and I just put a new bolt in there. Okay, I really didn't want to do any drilling and tapping and that kind of stuff. So this was particularly challenging, and this one too. The more the bolt was. This is the original bolt that came out of it. You can see that the bolt is all worn out, but I was able to heat this up. I took a die grinder and just sanded it here, so it made it easier to heat up. As you may or may not know, rust is a really good insulator to heat. Okay, heat this up kind of cherry red, let it cool for a bit. And then I was able to remove that bolt. Okay, so yeah, and then the brake line that goes to the right front. What you want to do, okay, you're gonna remove this thing here. Okay, you're gonna remove that shield, and the brake line simply runs along this cross member. Super easy. Okay. And the other side is the same as this one. So, okay. And then at the master cylinder, okay. So here's what it looks like in the master cylinder. Easy peasy. Let's take it. Okay. And then you have you have the primary master cylinder, this part here. Okay, that supplies the front brakes, and you have your secondary master cylinder that supplies the rear brakes. Okay, so these two go to the ABS unit, and that's pretty straightforward. Nothing special there. Okay, so what I did here is I filled up the brake fluid, and what I did was I bled the system and pressure tested it before I put. I'm actually still waiting for calipers and rotors. I have the rotors, but I'm still waiting for calipers. So what I did was I pressure tested the system before I put the calipers on. And the reason and this is how I did it. What I did was you can see I had the new brake line going to the old line. Okay, this is the old brake line here. Okay, and you can see here that I got it blocked off with a vice grip. Of course, I use a vice grip here because I'm not concerned about saving or damaging the old brake lines. So what I did was I put the old brake lines back in. Okay, you see the new stainless steel brake line, the old brake lines, and you can see here the new brake line. Okay. So you got the new brake line here. I just got to cover it with a piece of tape. Cover it with a piece of tape here so I don't get any crap in there. All right. And the old brake line going to the new stainless steel brake line. The reason I have this here is I put the old brake lines in on all four corners, okay, and I blocked them off with a vice grip. Not concerned with the vice grip damaging it because it's an old brake line. And what I did was I basically, pressure bled one line at a time. And then when I had all four lines pressure bled, so basically have someone in the truck pump up the brakes and bleed one single line at a time. And then what I had is and then when all four lines were bled, I had my assistant basically push the brake pedal really hard, push it down really hard, and I checked for leaks everywhere. Check for leaks at every junction, and especially at the ABS unit. I had some leaks at the ABS unit, but like I said, the reason I had leaks at the ABS, let's take a look at the ABS unit again. So anyways, so that's what it looks like here. Yeah. So looking at the ABS unit again, what I did was when I tightened them, I knew I was dealing with aluminum and brass. I knew it was soft. So I started by hand a few turns and I tightened them so they're snug, but not super tight. Of course, when I went to pressure test it, I had a few of these lines that were leaking, and I knew that. I kind of suspected that would happen. So I had my assistant, so after all four brakes were bled and free of air, I had my assistant basically push down hard on the brakes, and I had two lines. I believe it was this one here, it was this one here, and this one down here, and this one here. This one here and this line here were seeping just a little bit of fluid. So these lines here need to be tightened a little more. So while my assistant was pushing hard on the brakes and the system was pressurized, okay, I just tightened it enough so that it stopped leaking, stopped seeping, and then so tighten a little more to stop seeping, and then tighten a little more again, just as a little bit of insurance. And then I gave each one of these just a little more of a crank, just to make sure they're sealed. Had my assistant crank the brake pedal as hard as he could, and just sat there and looked and just made sure there's no other leaks. Okay, and also looked to the back and what have you. So yeah, that's how I did the brake lines on it. It's and you can see how I have this thing. I got two jack stands on the axle. I got one jack stand on the hitch in the back, and okay, and I got four jack stands in the front. All right, and I used to teach mechanics in local college, and like I always tell my students, never trust a jack stand. So. Okay, so there you have it. That's my brake line job, and so I gotta admit that it was relatively painful to do at home on the floor. But Slow and Easy does it. It's not that bad of a job, I guess. Can an amateur do it if you don't know what you're doing? I think so. Just be prepared to take your time and especially don't mess up the threads at the ABS unit. I think that's about it. I can't think of anything else.